Hello fellow humans, Millennium Man here with another video for you. And in this one, I am going to try to walk through all the steps that I take in taking a penciled image, either one that's drawn by me or one that I get off the internet, and show the basic setups that I use in order to get it ready for digital inking. Now, before I begin, I just want to make clear that these are the steps that I follow in order to get my work started. Now, whether, like I said, if the work is something that I do myself or something that I get off the internet, these are the steps that I take in order to get it to where I need to do so I can get started immediately on the work. I'll show you how I set up my page, all the settings for it, how to set up the borders, and some command functions in order to get started. Now, before I actually do anything, I just want to let you know that this is the way I do my work. It doesn't mean that it's the way that you do your work. It doesn't mean that your work is done wrong. This is the way that I set up my stuff so I can maximize my output when I do work. When you work digital, there's so many different ways to get to the same outcome that there really is no one true wrong way of doing anything. What works for you might not work for somebody else, but what works for me might not work for you as well. So this is just my way of doing things. Doesn't mean that I'm wrong. If you find that you have a better system of working, feel free to put it in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to give it a shot, especially if it helps me with my own work. But like I said, this is what works for me and me alone. The steps I'm going to show you, of course, you can pretty much copy in almost any program that you use, whether it's Photoshop, Clip Studio, or some of the other ones that are out there. I'll try to explain as best I can, but since this is a video, you can always go back and just see and listen to all the commands that I do in order to get my stuff done. So hopefully this is going to be helpful. If there's any extra comments or tips that you're willing to share, this is what these videos are here for. So please feel free to share with the rest of the group, because all I want to do is just make beautiful artwork and share it with the rest of the world. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to need is an actual piece of artwork to draw. Now you can get that from an infinite amount of sources. You can draw, ink your own work, you can ink a friend's, someone you know in art class, something physical that you can scan into your computer, or for what I'm going to do here is get something off of the internet. Now my favorite go-to spot is right here, called deviantart.com, but we pretty much can type in anything in the search bar. Let's say type in line art, press images, and you can see a whole bunch of work shows up. Now you can just grab one of these if the screen resolution is good. We'll talk about screen resolution in a little bit. Or like I said, my favorite spot to get artwork is a website called DeviantArt. Now DeviantArt is an artist website where you can join for free. You can sign up and you can post your own artwork, or you can just make a profile to collect artwork. You can find anything here: color drawings, inked, airbrush, all sorts of work. All I do is just type it in the search engine and look for it. Now what I've done actually under my own profile here, I've actually made several files where I actually keep work that I want to do, as well as posting my own stuff. Now for me, what I did for myself, just so I can find things easier, I made a favorites gallery. Now I have tutorials here, I have pencil work for me to ink, and ink work for me to color. Every once in a while I take the time to go through DeviantArt, look through a bunch of artwork through various people, and see what I can find and save it if I really like it or not. Over here in DeviantArt we have a watch list. Now these are people that I subscribe to, so whenever they put work up, I can easily press their tag, go to their pages, and download whatever work they have and just use it. Or like I said, I saved it here just so I can find it a lot easier. Now we're going to go to a person that I discovered recently. His name is Deilson. If I can find his piece of art that I'm looking to draw, I'll show you. Because what I decided to do was pick this one here. It's a really cool raven piece. I really admire all the artwork, all the line work. Here's a closer look at it. Beautifully penciled, beautifully rendered, and I think it will transition and translate beautifully as an inked project. Now for people who post, they have their, like I said, their own web page, or they post their work all the time. And like I said, I saved their name here, easy to find whenever I'm looking for stuff. And like I said, whatever I feel like pulling and saving it in my own gallery, that's what I did. So let's go back to that Raven piece. And we're going to download it and save it onto this computer. Now, the one thing you have to look for when it comes to downloading artwork like this is this right here, the screen resolution size. I find that anything that has more than 600 by 600 dpi will give you a real high quality image that you can blow up to any size that you want and work on without losing the quality of pencil work. Because some of these images are scanned at a low resolution, where if you were trying to blow it to a bigger size to work on, the pixels will get incredibly fuzzy and you won't be able to point out all the details, especially if you're trying to ink it. Something as big as this is a perfect DPI size for anyone to do any ink work, so this is why I'm picking it. It's real important to pay attention to these numbers. I personally always go for something that always has at least 600 or more. So we're going to download this right now. Here's the image here. Save image add. That's a right click on a mouse. And I've also set up a folder in my hard drive for my own stuff. Right down here where I keep pencil work for inking. I'll go in it. I'll just leave it like that. I don't have to give it any designations. Now, one thing you have to remember, that anything you download from deviantart.com is saved as a JPEG image. Now, if you're worried about the size of a document, worrying about space saving on your hard drive, you could download this and then bring it into your art program and resave it as a TIFF file. And the TIFF file will compress the work without losing the quality of the image, and it'll save a lot of space. I have a pretty big hard drive. Also, I have an external hard drive if I wanted to save it there. So the JPEG, the size of it really doesn't matter. I think it's fine for me. So we're going to save it like so. So now I got it in my file. Next thing I'm going to do is go into my art program, which is Clip Studio Paint. Probably one of the best all-around art programs on the market, tailor-made for comic book work, and this is what we're going to go with. So first thing I'm going to do here is actually make a new folder, a new file actually, a new page. Sorry about that, I meant new page. Now I've already done a bunch of presets for 8.5 by 11 comic pages, 11 by 17, which is the industry standard. I've even have it in portraits, laying sideways, just in case I want to do portrait pieces. We're going to pick the 11 by 17 comic page that I have here. I'm going to leave this here on screen for a minute, so if you do have Clip Studio, you'll be able to copy all of the settings that I have here. Now, industry standard size is 11 by 17. I keep the resolution at 600. That's because I want the image to be crisp and clean when I put it digitally or make a print out of it. I keep it at full color because eventually I will color this piece and I want to make sure the file is accepting colors. But here's the most important part right here. These are all the borders that show up on the page. The actual working live area is going to be 10 inches by 15 with a bleed width of a ½ an inch. The safe area, where you don't have to worry about any artwork being cut off if it ever comes to be printed as a comic, is 9 inches by 14 inches. I got this all preset, so all I have to do is press OK, and the page will be created automatically. Just like that. And you can see all the borders are already set up. Now the next step here is to actually bring the image that I picked into this document. So I'm going to go to Import under File, go to Image, going to find the picture. There she is. And I'm going to open it up. And there she is. Now I'm going to stretch it out in order to fit what I usually work in. Now since this is a pinup, I can actually make it all the way to 10 by 15 inches, which is already marked here. I'll be putting a border around it, so it makes a nice pinup if I ever get it to print. Looks like I got the right size. We'll double check. And that is, as you can see, if this was on an actual printed 11 by 17 page, the pencil lines are really sharp, makes it a lot easier to ink. So now that I got it where I want, I'll go up to here in the layer menu and press rasterize to make it an image that I can actually work on. Alright, now the image is set. Now what I'm going to do now, just so I can do it now instead of later, is actually put a clean border around the entire image with a backdrop of white so that none of the page behind it will actually show. So all I did was drag the opening clean raster layer page that they already put on this. I'm going to rename it really quick. And I'm going to call it border and add a border around the image. The easiest way to do that is to grab my rectangle marquee tool and actually activate my grid, which is set for 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch squares, and then press this button here, which will lock my anything that I draw on this, including this marquee border, onto the grid that's set up. These markers here that you see are set for the 10 by 15 working area that I've already mentioned from the creation of the page. And I'll just stretch it out. There we are. Now I got everything in my the 10 by 15 area that I'm going to work on. So now we're going to do a few more steps here. I'm going to create the border. So I'm going to go into selections, which is what these margin ants are. I'm going to expand the selected area by 30 pixels. As you can see how it moved away from the main 10 inch by 15 inch line, give me the extra 30 pixels across the board. And I'm going to fill it with black. Now don't worry about the image being destroyed. It's actually on its own layer. If I had to turn off the border, the image is right there safe and sound. So I'm not destroying anything. That's why it's best to work in layers one at a time. Always try to keep the original image as safe as possible. That way if you ever make a mistake, you always can go back a step or two and preserve the image that you started with. So now that I've filled the entirety of the 10 by 15 inches with black, I'm going to go back to selection again. I'm going to shrink the selected area by 60. So it's going to be 30 pixels past 10 inches by 15 inches and 30 pixels within 10 by 15 inches. Press OK there. You see the marching ant shrink. Then I'm going to pick this here, which means either erase or just clear pixels, and press the paint bucket there. And that eliminates all the black that was within those marching ants. Let's clear the ants now. And reselect the area outside of it with the picker tool. So now what I did was pick the empty space that is past the black border here. I'll go in and pick full white. Paint bucket one more time. Still thinking. And it's done. Right up. And I'll deselect the image. Now, you're probably wondering why I did that. And I'll show you exactly why. I'm going to make a new layer right above the original one of the image. Now, if I were to start inking, let's grab a black here, and I were to just go outside the border, outside the lines, just like that. By making a border the way I did, by filling the outside with white, when I turn it on, it's automatically blocked off. This allows you to just draw freely without worrying about making any mistakes on the side or anything. It's also a good way to test out your pens before you actually start, which I'll show you right now. First, let me just get rid of those two things there. Now, I usually work with the G pen here under the pen settings. I bought a pack of pens and pencils and markers for all different effects. You can do that. You can actually make your own brushes in here as well. But usually I just stick with the G pen because I feel like I have the best control with the G pen, especially when it comes to thick and thin lines. Now, say I was feathering something. Making hash marks. Let's say I went to the marker settings and I got a repeatograph 0.05, and I needed to work like this, rendering it out to the very edge. By pressing the border like this, I'm not worried about going past into this area, because once the border's on, it's going to be blocked off. So that is just a time-saving tool that I use in order to just get the artwork going. I always get in the habit of putting the border on first, just to make sure that I'm able to just start going in and drawing without worrying about making any mistakes out here. Like I said, it's also a good area to test your pen if you need to. Now, to ensure that I don't do any damage to my original pencil piece, which right now is on its own separate layer away from everything else, what I'm going to do is press, actually let me get rid of the grid, it's getting annoying. I want to protect the black and white image just in case I do any mistakes or accidentally try to draw on this and have it ruined. This here is the lock layer button. By doing that, I am now unable to draw on this layer at all. If there's anything that you not want altered after doing it, like drawing it, whether it's a background that's separate from the main image, the original drawing to begin with, best thing to do is put on the lock layer button so that you don't ruin it. As you can see, I just picked white. I can also pick black here. Now, because the layer is unlocked, I can actually ruin the black and white image. And if you don't have enough undos, which is this button here, to go back to fix mistakes. What if you're like working on that layer for 15-20 minutes and you don't even realize that you're working on the wrong layer? By then you've already gone too far into the work, and all of a sudden you won't be able to have enough undos to correct any mistakes. So best thing for you to do, like I said, lock the layer in order for you not to be able to ruin it at all. And I also do the same thing for the border because I don't want to do anything with the border either. The border is exactly the way I want it, and that way my artwork is safe and I can actually start working without a problem. I'm going to do a couple of more adjustments on the image itself. I am still able to manipulate in certain ways, but what I need to do is unlock it to finish what I was doing before. There's still a bit of a gap on both sides of the image. It's still slightly smaller than the border itself. I want the last of the pencil marks to actually touch the edge of this border, but I also don't want to distort the image too much either. So here's a neat little trick you want to try. Let's slide this over a little bit. So we're going to go to Edit. Actually, first thing we need to do is pick the entire layer. We're going to select all. There's your marching ants again. Now we'll select the image, and we're on the right layer. We'll go to Edit, Transform, and Scale Up and Scale Down or Rotate. Now to make sure that I am proportionally expanding the image from all directions, so there's no distortion, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and stretch the image a little more. And now I got that side done. I always stretch it from the corners, and that way I make sure I do everything right. Make sure that it stretches the proper way. By picking the corners, you stretch it from up, down, left, and right. Or I also could have done Shift and the Alt key. If you hold both of those down at the same time and pick a corner, it actually shrinks it proportionate from all directions. So either one works. Then once again, this is Shift, Alt, and holding onto one of the corners of the selection. I'll let it go. I'll press OK. Let it render. And there we go. Now we're almost ready to actually start inking the image. All this little prep before you actually start working is actually a good idea. And might save you a whole lot of trouble just in case you move a little too fast and make a mistake that you can't correct. Now there's only one more thing I need to do, which is what I usually do to protect myself as well. What I'm going to do, besides locking the original image, I'm going to make a duplicate of it. You can either go to Layer and say Duplicate Layer. As long as it's highlighted, it will duplicate the image. Or the shortcut, which is built into this program here, is go to the Layer Options menu and press Duplicate Layer. And I made a second duplicate. Why am I doing that? Because I'm going to do something that comic book artists all do as well. At least the old school ones did when they still worked on paper. Turn this into a blue line sketch. With Clip Studio, it's real easy to do. We're going to go to right next to Layer Properties. I unlocked the copy of the original image, so that way I can manipulate it. If you go to Layer Properties, you have all these options of changing the way the actual image looks. This program is wonderful because all I need to do is one button press here, and I can actually change the color of the image to a non-photo blue. Now, if anyone is unfamiliar with the non-photo blue, it's a type of colored pencil that you can draw on white paper as much as you want. But if you were to put it into a copy machine, the copy machine does not pick up the non-photo blue. It's an old technique that comic artists used to use when they worked on paper, that they would do all their line work, all their detailing in blue, so that the inker, that they can actually pencil on top of it actually. And sometimes they actually leave it blue too. Whatever the inker does over the pencils, if there's any blue showing behind the pencil work from his inking, if they were to make a photocopy of it, the blues does not show up. It disappears under a copier. Those who still work traditional still use that technique to this day. A few of them still do. for working in digital, since I used to do traditional work and I used to use a non-photo blue pencil to do all my work before I went into doing pencils, this is just a natural feel for me. I've worked in that style before. So turning it to blue is just something that I've used to do, and I just continue doing it in digital format. And having this one button press here makes it a whole lot easier to do. Now all the little manipulative steps that I just did to get this image into Clip Studio like this can also be repeated almost step for step in programs like Photoshop and Sketchbook and Autodesk and Corel Draw. They all pretty much follow the same basic setups. The commands on the keyboards are pretty much exactly the same. And except maybe for how to turn it to a non-photo blue, like I just did with the one button here, there is a way to do it into Photoshop that I'm going to show you right now. And here we are in Photoshop, and I'm going to show you how to turn this into a blue line layer just like I did in Clip Studio Paint. Once again, I'm going to work with a copy instead of the original, which is right here. Already ready for you. Now the best way to do that is going to here, Image, and going to the Adjustments and picking the Hue Saturation function. We're going to get this window here, and these three things, Hue, Saturation, and Lightness, are what we're going to do to change this into a blue line. Now Hue adds color, Saturation controls the amount of color, and Lightness controls the lightness and darkness. Now if I were to just start doing it right now, all I will be doing is controlling the colors that are already on the page, which is just the pencils. So the only thing that will work on this would be the lightness function. Just press the where I can darken it up or lighten it. Now I could just do it this way and leave it that light if I wanted to, but I'm used to blue line when I work on pencils, so I'm going to turn this into a blue line just like I did in Clip. And the first thing we got to do is press the colorize button in order to add color to it. Now the preview button is checked so I can see what I'm doing before I commit to it. So with Hue, if I start messing with the sliders, you can actually change the color that's there. You can turn it, add red, you can add blue, green, yellow, whatever you like. So we're going to work in blue. The number I'm going to use is 200. The blue we're going to go with. Now we move on to saturation. This is the percentage of blue that's going to be added into the image. If I were to go to 0, it'll turn all black, no blue added. If I go to 100, meaning 100%, all blues added. The blue that's adding 200. I don't want it that dark, so we're going to go with about 60%. Like so. Now lightness controls the actual lighting that you see. If I go to negative 100 on the slider, no light involved. It's completely black. If I go to 100 plus, it adds full brightness, full white. We don't want it that bright. To get it to a non-photo blue state, the best numbers I've noticed is between 60 and 75. So we're going to go with 75 for now. As soon as we press OK, we commit to it. And now that layer has been changed to a non-photo blue. And the details are still there and still visible. And you can ink right on top of this if you wanted to on a new layer. Just like that. And the blue line sketch is still there. And you can ink right on top. No problem at all. And of course you lock the layer to make sure you don't make any mistakes on the blue line. Just to save yourself a lot of trouble. That's pretty easy, isn't it? But I can show you an easy way to do this where all you have to do is just press one button and convert it to a blue line sketch whenever you feel like it. So let's get rid of the document here. Drag it to the trash. Or I don't know why it's dragging. Come on, drag, please. Alright. Actually, what we should do is unlock it first. That way we don't be able to manipulate it or erase if you want to. So we're good there. And let's make another copy. Layer. Duplicate layer. Here we are. Lock the original. And we're going to change this into a non-photo blue. But we're going to use something called an action. It's a bunch of repeatable steps. By pressing one button, you can repeat the same step over and over again as many times as you want. It's a quick shortcut, and once it's programmed into Photoshop, and funny thing, Clip Studio Paint also has an actions button, it's permanently there, and you can use it whenever you feel like it. You can see I already made one that I use on the regular here, but we're going to show you how to make an original one for yourself. Now, the first thing we're going to do is make sure our action menu is turned on, which it is right here. And if you don't see it on your Photoshop program, just go to Window and activate it by clicking on Actions, and you'll get this pop up here, like here. And these are a bunch of presets that all I got to do is just press play. If I highlight one, here's the play button if I wanted to use it. This is play, here's record, and here's stop. And they pretty much work the same way, like a VCR or a tape recorder. Once I press play, it'll convert whatever is highlighted or whatever's on that layer into whatever is recorded. I have a bunch that's already set here, but what I'm focusing on right now is creating a blue line layer. So we're going to make a brand new one, so I'll show you how it's done. Now, in order to create an action, once the action button is, once the action menu is activated, you go here to its submenu. We're going to go to New Action. We're going to give this a name, and we're going to call it BLADJ. Blue Line Adjustments. I've created a separate file for my own personal adjustments, which is Custom Action version 1. I'm going to leave it like that. And I can also set it to a function button. So all I would have to do is just press that particular button, and that action will actually play and do what I wanted to. Since I already have this set to F2, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to press record. And you can see that the red button is lit here for recording. That means that anything that I do right now is going to be recorded until I press stop. And that way the action will record my commands. And once I press stop, the action is created. So what we're going to do here to turn this to a blue line is go to this button here under our layers menu and create a new adjustment layer. Think of it as a separate layer that's masking everything underneath it, so anything underneath it will be affected by this layer here. Let's do that, and we're going to go to hue saturation again. And here comes this pop-up that almost looks like the hue saturation that we saw in image, but slightly different. But just enough to get the same effect. Once again, we're going to colorize the image in order to add color to it, and we can see it in real time. And same numbers as before. Hue at 200, saturation at 60, and lightness at 75. And now we have a layer that is on top of our original that has the hue saturation already set up. Now that I am done, I'm going to press stop. And now, whenever I want to, I'll be able to repeat this step 1,000 times over as many times as I want. And I'll show you. Let's get rid of this layer here. And we're back to our copy. I'm going to highlight, by clicking on it, my adjustment layer, and all I gotta do is press play. And with one button, just like in Clip Studio Paint, I was able to turn the black and white image into a non-photo blue. If I wanted to adjust it, all I would have to do is double click here to bring the menu up, and I can use a slider and change it to whatever I want. If I'm not happy with non-photo blue, I can make it, I don't know, non-photo green, non-photo yellow, non-photo red. I know you've probably seen work like this done in red. Same thing. Just like that. Anything underneath this hue hue saturation mask will turn everything into this blue. If I to move this on top, it's now not under this, and you get the full black again. Anything underneath will be now covered by this hue saturation layer. If you don't want to use it, all you do is turn it off. And that's pretty much it. So you can actually just leave any black and white image into here. In fact, I'll even show you what to do here. Let me just turn this off for a second. Let's say I have my original image and I don't have a photocopy. Once I activate hue saturation layer, I can turn it non-photo blue without destroying it or even adjusting the photocopy now. Like, I don't even have to make a duplicate of this layer because I have this layer on top, which is a layer mask, which is just covering up whatever's underneath. And like I said, all you gotta do is either press play or set it to a function, and you can repeat the action as many times as you want. In fact, you can do any steps here and record it as an action that you could just do over and over again as many times as you want. So now, if I bring any black and white image into Photoshop and I wanted to ink it here instead of clip, and I wanted to work in a blue line, all I have to do is just press this and create a layer mask in order to work on it in a blue line, and just go to the layer on top, and I can start inking. Just like this. And it won't affect the image underneath. And it's just that simple. Now I want to thank everybody for tuning into this video. Hopefully it was helpful. And before I go, I also want to thank the artist that created this image. I don't think I got a chance to do so. His name is Deilson. I'll put links in the description of all of his work from DeviantArt and any of the websites that he has. The guy's a really incredible penciler. I've been enjoying looking at his work, and I plan to do a lot of his work pretty soon. And I do hope that somehow he gets wind of this video that I'm using his image, and I'd like to personally thank him for creating such a beautiful Raven piece. And I hope to do more of your work soon, sir. So hopefully, like I said, this was helpful to you, and hopefully this will actually help your work and push your skills a little further. Then the next video, I'm actually going to start inking this piece, and I'll see if I can finish it in one sitting. More than likely, it might take 2 videos. I'll show you all my tool presets in Clip Studio Paint, which pens I use, which brushes that I use, and any little tricks and techniques that I use in order to get this to a fully inked image. And until then, thank you very much. Please leave a like or comment in the description, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.